Hi, everyone. I know we're not meeting today. Currently, the plumber is working on the pipes downstairs. So hopefully everything is okay. It ended up being a much bigger project than even he anticipated. So he's taking care of that as I record this video right now. I've been receiving a couple of messages from you guys wondering how to do 6.2 problem number 3, I believe it is. Once you see what I've written on my sheet of paper, I think you'll know exactly which problem I am referring to. So I'd like to walk you through an example that's very similar to that one, and hopefully that'll help you get through your assignment. Let's take a look. So notice here we have a couple things going on. First off, I notice I have a power on the outside of the set of my parentheses. So I'm going to make a note that I'm going to use the power rule in this case. Also notice that I have a negative exponent, so I'm definitely going to use a negative exponent rule. The other thing I notice is that when I look across the board, I have x variables in the numerator, denominator, y variable, numerator, denominator. So something tells me I'm definitely going to end up possibly using the quotient rule. The last piece is we recognize that when we take our quantities, so whenever we have a base to a negative power, we circle it, right? And we say we have to move this from its location to its opposite. So for instance, because x to the negative 2 is in the denominator, we're actually going to move this up to the numerator. And of course, that power becomes positive. When I do that, notice that my x's will be in the same line. They're both numerators, which means I'm also going to apply the product rule. So almost all the rules are being applied for this one particular problem. So let me show you how I would approach this. First off, I'm going to use the power rule. Notice that inside this first set of parentheses, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 bases. Each base has a power. This 9 is being raised to the first power. The 4 is being raised to the first power. And then, of course, we see the powers of my x and my y. So I'm going to take my power on the outside and distribute to each power on the inside. This results in a 9 to the 4th power. And x to the 28th power. Remember, you're distributing, which means you're multiplying power times power. All over 4 to the 4th power, and then y to the 40th. So far, so good. The next thing I note is that there is no power on the outside of this set of parentheses, so I'm actually just going to drop the set of parentheses. Everything is being multiplied together, so it doesn't matter that we have parentheses or not. We understand that everything is being multiplied. I still have a 4 to the 2nd power. I have a y to the 30th. And now that x to the power of 2 is going to join in the numerator. In the denominator, I have a 9 to the 3rd. Okay, at this point, we can make note that we applied both of those rules. At this point, we can say, all right, let's employ the quotient rule and the product rule. Remember, with the quotient rule, you keep the base, subtract the powers. So I'm going to start with my first base, which is 9. Notice I have a 9 to the 4th in my numerator and a 9 to the 3rd in the denominator. So when we apply the quotient rule, we keep the base, right? And we have to subtract the power. So 4 minus 3 is 1. We recall that we leave the remainder wherever it's heaviest. So as I do this, I'm going to make note that this 9 to the power of 3 will completely cancel, and then take 3 away from 4, and that leaves you with just 1 left over. And of course, that's going to be in the numerator because it's larger. I'm then going to move to my base of 4. I have 4 to the 4th in the denominator, 4 to the 2nd in the numerator, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel. So 4 to the 2nd, this one goes away, and we're going to take 2 away from 4, and that leaves us with 2. Next, I'm going to look at my base y. Notice here I have y to the 30th in my numerator and y to the 40th in my denominator. So I'm going to subtract the powers. So these go away completely. 30 from 40 leaves me with just 10. Lastly, notice you have x to the 28th times x to the 2nd. They're both in the same line. They're both in the numerator. So that means we're going to be able to apply the product rule, which means you keep the base and you add the powers. So let's rewrite this so that it's nice and clear. In my numerator, across the board, I have a 9 to the 1st power. X to the 28th times x to the 2nd as you keep the base, add the powers, that becomes x to the 30th. In my denominator, I have a 4 squared, and in my denominator, I also have a y to the 10th. To finish this off, I'm simply going to apply these powers. So a 9 to the first is simply 9. You do not need to write to the first power. And then 4 squared is 16. Notice that in Lumen, you'll have to write 9x to the 30th in the upper blank and then 16y to the 10th in the lower blank to show both the numerator and denominator. And voila, that's it. I hope that you find that to be very helpful, and I will see you all tomorrow in class. Bye.